Cambridge Film Show.
Cambridge Radio.
Hello and welcome to the Cambridge Film Show, your fortnightly guide to the latest movie releases on the big screen and small. I'm your host, Luke Irwin, and on the week that we review The Drama, in which Zendaya and Robert Pattinson take a pre-wedding ritual to share the worst thing they've ever done, I know exactly how they feel. After watching the film, one of today's panel told me their own horrifying secrets, and I can barely look at them the same way again. But was it a Lorcan O'Neill?
Hello.
Or Matt Taylor?
I certainly hope not.
Yeah, well, the worst thing you've ever done, Matt, is your glowing review of Wuthering Heights on the show a couple of weeks ago. But you'll be hearing from the guys throughout today's show, where we'll be covering everything you can watch in and around Cambridge over the next week. Alongside The Drama, we'll be heading back to the Mushroom Kingdom in the Super Mario Galaxy movie, unpacking a real-life hip-hop hoax in James McAvoy's California Schemin', and getting into legal trouble in Francois Ozon's adaptation of the classic novella The Stranger. Elsewhere, Halle Bailey gets a surprise holiday romance, of course she does, in You, Me and Tuscany, while over in Japan, tempers flare on the eve of the World Cup as, finally, the Roy Keane, Mick McCarthy biopic Saipan comes to UK streaming. But let's get started today with Wedding Bells, A Terrible Secret, and the trailer for The Drama.
So you're saying Charlie is your first love?
Yeah.
First love or your first crush?
Both, I think. Wait, is that insane?
At 30?
So I want to say this thing about her laugh. You know how it's very cute, but it's also kind of
Propulsive even.
All right, so before we got married, we did this thing where we said the worst thing we've ever done.
Okay. I'll tell mine if we all do it. Promise?
What did you do?
This dog.
Beer bottles and porn.
You left him there overnight.
Yeah.
What's the worst thing I've ever done?
Okay,
Are you
Drama
serious?
is the latest film from A24 Studios. It follows Emma and Charlie, played by Zendaya and Robert Pattinson, in the days leading up to their wedding. Yet the usual jitters before the big day explode into something far more unsettling after the couple are encouraged by their friends to share the worst thing they've ever done. And this really is the moment upon which the film hinges. This is a film that knows it has an explosive secret, and it's going to be the thing that tempts you into coming into the cinema. I think notably they refrain from basically telling you much of that beyond that in the trailer of the film. And for me, this is a film that wants you to stay in that disorienting whiplash when you discover what that secret is. But Matthew, you watched this film. I think this is a film it's about more than just its secret.
Yeah, I mean, the secret itself is a huge turning point. I think you're right. It's the correct choice not to reveal that in the trailer, and definitely something that you'll be able to talk about with anyone that has seen it and give your own take on it. I think, I agree, it's very well done. But the film is about the breakdown of a relationship. We could compare this to another film about a breakdown of a relationship that we're going to cover today in Saipan. I think this does a lot of more interesting things than Saipan does, because we get sort of quite a clever introductory device of both the central characters, Robert Pattinson and Zendaya, writing their wedding speeches. So we get that as a way into sort of a montage of their best moments. And then we get this crashing revelation that sort of turns Robert Pattinson's idea of who he's about to marry completely on its head. And seeing him wrestle with who this person that he's about to marry might be, it is, I thought, really fascinating and really funny and really tense. And by the time you get to the final wedding scene at the end, when there have been so many revelations and so many people have had opinions and both characters are not sure who knows and what they think about it, it's fantastically tense. And I went to see this with my wife. She was gripping my arm tightly and just could barely even watch. So that tells you the film is extremely successful at what it's trying to do. I think I absolutely love Robert Pattinson in this, but you've also got to give credit to Zendaya for managing to pick another amazing film to be in. I don't think she's done a less than a 4-star film for me for a long, long time. If you think about Dune and Greatest Showman and Overall Challengers, of course. So, yeah, I think this is definitely one to see in a group that you can discuss the relationship dynamics and ultimately the secret and see what you think about it.
Yeah. I think you sort of alluded to this nature of this being a film about relationships. And for me, I think what works here is that they take what is a fairly familiar issue, which is what happens if there's someone who, you're getting to know, and then you don't really know. There's some aspects about them that's like, gosh, do I even know this person anymore? And they've pushed that to an absurd degree to draw out a really fantastical and absurd breakdown. Lorcan, how did you get on with this film?
No, I agree. I think so it's directed by Christoph Borgli and produced by Ari Aster, who both worked on Dream Scenario, which is one of certainly my favorite films of 2023. And both of those filmmakers have this fantastic kind of counterculture habit of needling the audience. And the subject matter of this film is shockingly serious and has very grave undertones. But I think part of the reason why it's called the drama is because it's that famous quote where tragedy up close is dramatic and a tragedy from a distance is comedy. And the film's trying to bridge that and see how far you can push the comedy when you have these kind of intense close-up relationship issues. I think I preferred Zendaya over Robert Pattinson. I think Robert Pattinson is kind of just playing a doofy version of himself. But I think they do have really good chemistry. I think Zendaya continues her streak of having really great chemistry with everyone on screen except her husband. And Alana Haim plays this fantastically... Oh, she's got the perfect face for this role. Where you just feel so bad for her husband, who's portrayed as the nicest possible human being, of course, and you feel a lot of stress from there. It's really trying to push how funny this kind of subject matter can be, and there'll be moments where I think people will look at certain things. There's a moment where Robert Pattinson's talking about how he views American culture after this incident, and some people I think would laugh out loud, and some people would be like, that's very interesting. I think that's what the filmmakers are trying to put you in this kind of awkward situation. And both this and Dream Scenario have a really good premise that makes you kind of puts you in the place of what would you do if this insane thing happened? What would you do? Which is kind of fuel for like endless conversation after the film.
And I'm hoping it's not too much of a spoiler to say what this thing is a quite controversial topic in society today. And I think you've alluded to the fact that Robert Pattinson, and it's a rare instance of him using his English, his real English accent in this film. He's playing an expat, and Christopher Borgli, who's directed this, he's Norwegian, I believe. I think there's something about this film that's trying to detract from the Americanness of the setting. And I feel like there's part of the film that's giving you that detached... I mean, it feels European in a lot of ways, I think visually as well. It's set in Boston.
But it almost couldn't be set in Europe.
Yeah, it took me a long time to figure... It's only a few context clues of, like, he's working at one of the universities there.
Yeah.
But it feels like a real outsider's depiction of America.
Well, this is something I want to bring up as well, because this is... it feels in large part like a Michael Haneke film or a Lars von Trier film. And I imagine if Christopher Borgli was making this in his home country, it would have a very different ending. But I think he's trying to taper himself and be like, well, I've got two big A-listers. This is my chance to make a really good film that'll break through the mainstream audiences. I can't have that ending. So I think the ending does fall a little flat. It feels more like...
Needs to give you a little bit of hope.
You have the payoff, and he's just like, well, this ending's fine. And the ending is fine. It's just not what it probably would have been under different circumstances, I imagine.
For me, the ending, I thought, was perfect for this film. And I think this is a comedy, I think.
Oh, definitely.
And I think that I think there is doing a lot there, because I'm not a huge fan of cringeness and awkwardness. I don't tend to find that especially funny. This film really leans into that in a few ways that I think works better than I've seen a lot of films do this.
I'd say it's highbrow cringe comedy as opposed to the lowbrow cringe.
Yeah. Like there's this one, Zoe Winters appears in one sequence as a photographer, and it's so like they're going to get their wedding photos done like the day after this revelation has been made. And the way that she plays a really enthusiastic wedding photographer, while these two, they're
having some
own,
serious doubts.
Yeah. And it's played supremely well. And then, of course, these kinds of films, it builds up and it culminates and it becomes something excruciating by the final act. And obviously, there's also some satire as well, but I'm not sure, like, the things that it's satirising, unfortunately, we're not really allowed to talk about on air. Does anyone have any further issues with this film?
I think just to bounce on the side characters, because like we talked about Alana Haim and Manudu Athi, who play the kind of the best friend couple who are playing the respectively groomsman and maid of honor. Haley Gates starts off having quite a small character, then slowly transitions to quite a large character. And there's a really important scene between her and Robert Pattinson where they're just eating lunch. And I think her reactions are just so kind of. It's like the film kind of tipping the hat as to how the filmmakers want you to approach this topic, where she's just giving these really deadpan, well, if this happened to me, I would obviously do this.
She's giving him the sanity check, reality check that he needs.
And he's just becoming more and more unhinged, and that leads to a really awkward and very funny interaction in the scene following that as well. But I think, it's not for the faint of heart, but it is a very good time. I think, it's a perfect date night movie, which is potentially why this is doing so well in Cambridge.
And there is a real, like you mentioned this, like the relationship feels believable, and it feels, weirdly sweet. Like, it feels like the moral of this story is about you really have to love the person you're going to marry, and they show an extreme level of radical empathy that I think is really quite admirable. Before we move on, we do have a piece of listener correspondence. I was a long-time friend of the show, Ben, messaged me. He said, as a man who's getting married soon, it might not have been the best watch film at the moment. As someone who's already anxious about the big day, watching the wedding play out made me wish this film had come with a trigger warning. Let's say good luck with your wedding, Ben. I'd say, it could be worse, but the way the world's going at the moment, I think anything short of like a melancholia situation as a wedding would be pretty fine. If you want to get in touch with your comments on any of the films that we discussed today, you can message us on 07919 070490, or you can email us at studio@cambridge.radio. But that is The Drama, and it's a certificate 15, and it's showing at all 3 Cambridge cinemas. That's the Light, the Picture House, and the Everyman. Next up, we have perhaps the exact opposite movie. Here are the 2 famous Italians, Chris Pratt and Charlie Day, as the Super Mario Brothers.
I demand that you release my father.
Over my dead body.
Fine with me.
That was the trailer for the Super Mario Galaxy movie. And before we go any further, I have my own terrible secret to share. Not only have I not seen any Super Mario Brothers film, and not only have I never played any of the Super Mario games, I've never interacted with a single Nintendo product in my life. So I'm hoping you two can do some of the heavy lifting here. But yet, I'm led to believe that this sequel is a big deal. I believe the first Super Mario Brothers film was one of the highest grossing films of whatever year it came out, 2023, I believe. Here we go. Having thwarted Bowser's previous plot to marry Princess Peach, Mario and Luigi face a new threat in Bowser Jr., who is determined to liberate his father from captivity and restore the family legacy. Alongside companions new and old, the brothers travel across the stars to stop the young heir's crusade. Lorcan, there's a lot of names there. Mm-hmm. For anyone who needs a refresher on the Super Mario Brothers film series, please tell us how this film picks up.
So the first one, I think the first one was very much a safe pair of hands, crowd-pleasing. It was Illumination working with Nintendo to create kind of best possible product to appease fans and appeal to a broad audience while showing all the potential things you can do with this premise, a Mario Kart film and Luigi's Mansion, all that kind of stuff. So a lot to do. I think the first one was quite light on its feet to set up all this and achieve all those goals, which I think for the most part it didn't. I think the box office reflects that. For this one, it's naturally upping the stakes, introducing more characters, and delving into the Super Mario Galaxy games, as well as some Super Mario Odyssey elements as well. For the reviews for this were so bad because my partner and I quite enjoyed the first one, so we were like, "Oh, we'll go see the next one." But the reviews were so scathing for the large part that we figured, well, we'll try to squeeze any entertainment we can. So we went to Stevenage to the 40X, which was also then in 3D, which we'd never experienced before. And as a 40X experience, this is absolutely fantastic. And the 3D even was really bright and it wasn't fuzzy. So well done, Stevenage. That experience was very good. And this is definitely a 40X film. Taking that aside, I thought this film was absolutely fine. I thought it wasn't... I mean, comparing this to The Wild Robot, which came out last year or the year before, which I found schizophrenic, serious pacing issues, horrific characterization, I found this to be much more cohesive. And I suppose, the setting changes quite often, and it introduces you to a lot of different characters, but it all makes sense within the narrative. Like, it's called Super Mario Galaxy, and in the games, a galaxy is just a collection of small planets, so he's hopping all over the place. But despite having all these different characters, every character has their room to breathe. Every character has a nice little arc, for what it's worth. There's a lot of jokes that make sense, and the animation I thought was incredible. There's never a moment where your eyes aren't dazzled. At least mine weren't.
I mean, I saw the trailer for this film, and I thought it really does look pretty high quality, and we don't always see that with a lot of animated films. Matt, are you a Super Mario fan?
No, I was always a Sonic guy growing up, and I guess I still am, because whilst Mario's won the video game war, Sonic has absolutely won the movie war. I would say every Sonic movie is better than every Mario movie up to this point, and this is I haven't seen the live action Mario one, but this was pretty bad. I mean, it does look nice. I would give credit to the animation. I think Illumination are an excellent choice for this kind of larger than life, kind of bright, crazy, all sorts of stuff happening at once. And I thought some of the action scenes were visually impressive, but it's not really held together by any sort of meaningful plot. There's a huge amount of famous names doing the voices, but I don't think you really kind of pick up an impressive performance from any of them, and I hope that the likes of Brie Larson and Glenn Powell to take the money they make from this and go and make the best art house movie ever, because they definitely owe us something back from having taken the money here. There were bits I liked. I thought that there's a stylish introduction of a character, which I guess possibly could be a spoiler, but he gets a sort of nice anime style introduction, and I'd love to see that as a sort of fully fledged anime series. And there's a nice sequence where Bowser's in his castle using his machines to attack Mario, and you get to see it from his perspective. He's playing kind of 2D Mario as the villain, and then we cut back to seeing what it looks like in 3D. I thought that was a cool section, but other than that, it's just a series of very loosely connected bits. It's like, oh, now we're going to the lava planet, now we're going to the casino planet, now we're going to the dinosaur planet. And yeah, I didn't think anyone really had an arc. Like, no one really develops. Bowser, he's kind of up and down as to whether he's a nice guy or whether he's evil or whether he's back to being a nice guy again. And it just, I mean, I can't say it's terrible, because it did look nice and my daughter did enjoy it, but there really is nothing for adults here unless you're a Super Mario fan.
Well, that is interesting, because the trailer looked like it was pretty intense. Like, I was watching this thinking it's pretty high stakes, it's pretty loud. Yeah. There seemed to be quite a lot of threat and peril, and I was wondering who is this for? Because my impression, and it seems like Matt disagrees with me, and he's seen the film, is that this film feels like it's aimed at adults in their 30s who played Super Mario and wanted a retro experience rather than it being. Well, that's the two part. I think it works well as a kids film, by which I mean, kids can appreciate good things, but kids can appreciate rubbish that's colourful, and this is rubbish that's colourful, but it also has the references to appeal to the millennials who maybe grew up with Mario.
I think it's just. I thought it was really solidly plotted. I disagree about the character arcs. I think Bowser Jr. it's just like this doofy little turtle with a tooth hanging out. But he's got quite a sweet. There's a fantastic sequence where you learn about him and his dad tells his evil plan through a puppet show. And so it's a
bit like Project Hail Mary.
Yeah, not dissimilar. So you got this 3D animation, and then the 3D characters doing a puppet show using like paper cutouts and stuff, and it's so cute. And Bowser Jr., which is played by Benny Safdie of all people, for God knows why, and then Donald Glover plays Yoshi. It's all over the place. It's a fairly adult-oriented cast of serious, kind of more dramatic actors. But Bowser Jr. has a lovely arc where he learns to appreciate what it is he loves about his father. Jack Black does a fantastic job as Bowser, and he appreciates why he is the way he is. Chris Pratt's playing Mario. He's got an arc where he's trying to approach Daisy in a romantic way. So thank you for the film for finally saying that Mario and Peach, are a romantic thing. It's not going to change anyone's lives, but everyone has a little arc that keeps you going, and it's like they did the bare minimum for the narrative to facilitate all these visuals, and the visuals are incredible, and the pace is, and like the kids that were in our screening, they went mental for it. They loved it.
I think what I struggle with is that there isn't enough link to the real world. I mean, in the first Mario movie, there was this idea that Mario and Luigi were real plumbers who have gone into this world, whereas in this, there's no link to reality at all. I mean, I think that's something the Sonic movies do well, is grounding the craziness in a real world setting and making you care about some actual humans, whereas I was really struggling to invest in anything that was going on here because it just had no kind of context.
I suppose the Sonic film does have it's a live action film with animated elements, whereas this is allowed to go full, off the rails. So
there we go. We've got two very contrasting opinions there. So whether you're a small child or an adult who grew up with Super Mario, you may or may not enjoy the Super Mario Galaxy movie. It is a certificate PG, and if you want to watch that, you can catch it at the Everyman and the Light. And we continue the theme of people struggling to do accents. We didn't even touch on Chris Pratt and Charlie Day's accents with as we travel from Los Angeles to Dundee for California scheming.
Yo, Nancy said Bob was dead. No correction. If Bob was dead, when it's resurrection.
Thank you so much.
We're not finished.
It's like the rapping Proclaimers. It's okay, pal. It's just one audition.
Well, it wasn't the music they were laughing at. It was us.
Back in the day when we was... I know what people want to hear.
The next Wu-Tang Clan, the next Eminem.
What we're gonna do is remix Eminem.
What? An American?
If we're gonna do this, that means no more Scottish. We gotta walk, talk, freaking be American.
We're from California.
God bless America.
Based on a true story, California Scheming tells the story of two young men from Dundee who conned the music industry by pretending to be an established US-based rap duo. It stars Seamus McLean Ross and Samuel Bosomley as Gavin and Billy, who form Syllable and Brains, who, with a little work on their American accents, find themselves hitting unexpected heights. Matt, we have seen a lot of music biopics in recent years, perhaps too many. But this one seems to have a little bit of an edge. It feels like it's a long con film mixed with a biopic.
Yeah, potentially. I was watching this and I was sort of thinking, why is this not quite working for me? Because I was very excited for it. I mean, James McAvoy's directorial debut, he also has a role as a nasty music producer in it, and he's having a lot of fun sneering his way through it. But there was just something about it that didn't ring true. And I was watching, I was just thinking, I need to look up what's really happened here, because this just doesn't feel plausible. And reading up the real life situation, I don't think they really fooled anyone. And it seems like they were just interpreted as doing a bit of kind of performance art. And they were sort of portraying themselves in this kind of gangster American way, but I don't think anyone ever really believed that that's what they truly were. Whereas the film's kind of taking this approach that, the record company really believed that they were Americans. It's like, well, how does this work with the sort of HR side of things? Like, at some point you have to pay money to people who are clearly not Americans with American bank accounts. So the whole thing just struck me as bizarre in that sense. But I think there is an interesting idea here about, does it matter whether the art that you're consuming is coming from an authentic source, or can you still enjoy it if it's coming from a non-genuine source. So in that sense, it reminded me of the Milli Vanilli movies we had from about 3 years ago, where Milli Vanilli were a music duo who were just miming all their songs and were purely chosen because of the vibe that they put forth of looking like they were good at music when actually they weren't. Whereas in this film, the two central rappers, they are genuinely talented rappers. They're just choosing to portray themselves in this American way. And I think for the film to accept that anyone took this American portrayal seriously just really pushed my suspension of disbelief too far. But I think I'm in the minority because a lot of people really seem to really like this.
Yeah. I mean, you've alluded to the fact that James McAvoy directed this. It's his directorial debut. I don't know how enamoured he was with this as a story.
Well, he must have been quite enamoured, because to take on something like this, I mean, it's a lot about being Scottish and whether you can be Scottish and in hip-hop at the same time. So clearly he found something to resonate with in this story.
And did you see some talent in him as a director?
But potentially, I think that some of the sequences where they're rapping and performing to a crowd, I think were quite stylishly done. But I don't think the film overall really gets above 3 stars for me, because most of the tension and conflict is just general kind of rags to riches. One member of the duo gets too big for his boots and, gets a bit jealous of the girlfriend of the other one, like taking too much of his time away from the rap. And it's like, none of this is really related to the core conceit of Scottish people pretending to be American. So I thought the film kind of sets up this kind of interesting idea that's then a bit ludicrous and then doesn't even really contribute to the core conflict by the end. So
it does sound like it's playing far more into the standard plot beats of the music.
Very standard plot beats of, they get big, they fall out, and then they, reconcile at the end. You can
almost picture every single sequence along the way. And, I mean, 3 stars is a recommendation.
Yeah, I'd say I was just more expecting more from it because of the hype of James McAvoy, and it's getting a lot of very good reviews. But I think if you look past that, there isn't necessarily a whole lot there. And I think if you're more interested in this kind of story, I'd recommend checking out Girl, You Know It's True, which is the Milli Vanilli story from a few years ago, which I think goes a lot further into the tension of the music that's being produced and the people who are ostensibly producing it not being the same person.
And it's also worth pointing out there was a documentary made about Syllable and Brains called The Great Hip Hop Hoax, which is available to stream on Amazon Prime I guess there's a double bill perhaps.
It could potentially be more interesting, because I believe in reality they lived this lifestyle for about 3 years, whereas in the film it seems to be over a span of a couple of months. But yeah, I don't think anyone in reality really ever believed it. It was just a performance art thing.
Well, there we go then. It's sort of a lukewarm positive review there from Matt. That's California Scheming, A Certificate 15, and it is available at all 3 Cambridge cinemas.
Cambridge Radio.
On Cambridge Challengers, Lewis Herbert is joined by Shiv Malik and Peter Studdart to explore ambitious plans for a vast new forest city east of Cambridge, with up to 400,000 homes and major new rail links.
They are ugly. And there is no infrastructure. I mean, you can't disagree with any of that. And yes, the houses, when they're built, tend to be completely unaffordable anyway for the next generation.
Northstowe and Waterbeach both have ambitions for about 10,000, 11,000 homes, which is a sort of market town scale. And Cambridge South, Trumpington Meadows and Great Knighton together produced about 4,000 homes.
Cambridge Challengers, online whenever you want, and Sunday at 12 on Cambridge Radio.
Chef patron Jamie and his family welcome you to the Maid's Head in Wicken. Known for phenomenal food served in a warm, family-friendly atmosphere, the Maid's Head is a welcoming local pub where quality cooking and a relaxed environment come together. It's perfect for everyday meals or those special occasions. Book a table today. Visit maidshead.co.uk or call 01353 524 166. The Maid's Head Wicken. Great food and a warm welcome.
Cambridge Film Show.
This is Cambridge Radio.
Welcome back to the Cambridge Film Show on Cambridge Radio. I'm Luke Irwin, and with me today are Lorcan and Matt, who, during the ad break, have assured me that just like Zendaya in the drama, neither of them have technically committed any crimes. If you've missed the context for that, you can always listen back to today's show and all of our previous ones online. We're available as a podcast on your smart speaker and on YouTube. Search Cambridge Film Show on the Radio Player app or wherever you get your audio. As for today, we have a film that I'm genuinely excited for Lorcan to tell me about. It's Francois Ozon's adaptation of the Albert Camus The Stranger. We don't have a trailer for this one, with it being in French, but I can tell you it tells the story of Meursault, played here by Benjamin Vaussan, a settler living in French Algeria in the 1940s. The story begins, infamously, with the death of Meursault's mother and his indifference to the news, to go along with his general emotional detachment from society. Lorcan, the reason I'm excited for you to tell me about this film is that I love this book, and there have been a handful of adaptations, and I've always thought it's a really difficult book to adapt because of how much it's about the character's insular nature, whereas cinema, inherently third person, it's a camera looking upon this guy, and I'm wondering how they managed to depict someone who's apathetic on screen in a way that is interesting.
It feels like very much a film that's out of its time. It feels Benjamin Vaussan plays Meursault, who is in Francois Ozon's previous one of his previous films, Été 85, Summer 85. And I think his face and his body do a lot of heavy lifting here. It feels very much like a Federico Fellini film or a Steve McQueen film, where you're just so kind of entranced by just the look of the character. Benjamin does a really good job of kind of making you unaware of what exactly he's thinking and when, and you have to kind of use the context of the scene to try and read him. And I think he does a really impressive job. I mean, he is gorgeous, so it does kind of fall back into this kind of classic Hollywood trope, which is very, which I liked for this kind of setting, which is very kind of thoughtful. But I think the same goes for pretty much all the cast. Rebecca Marder, who plays his kind of on and off girlfriend Marie, she does a really good job of being empathetic towards Meursault throughout everything, all the trials and tribulations. And I think the standout for me in terms of just performance through dialogue was Pierre Latin, who played Raymond, his neighbor, who's vaguely racist, misogynistic, may or may not be a sex trafficker, but he's just very charismatic, and he just carries himself, and he always has these perfect explanations for what he does and why he does it, and it's very easy to kind of get lured into his kind of rhetoric. I did read the book, like all good pessimists. I read it when I was in university. I don't remember I remember this altercation on the beach, and then he rants at a priest at the end. Both of which were handled quite well through the film. You might be able to correct me. I don't remember there being much of a trial, because there's an altercation at the beach that leads to a death. And from memory, I don't remember much of a trial in the book. But for me, the trial is really where the film takes off, where there's a perfect balance between all these really well-cast side characters doing their bit. They all look the part, balanced with a very apathetic character trying to defend himself when he himself doesn't really know what's going on or why he did the things he did. That's where the film really shines. There's a good 20-minute sequence there that is very much worth staying for.
I mean, the trial is a fairly substantial part of the book, so I recommend go back and give it another read, because it is it is worth pointing out. So this book was written in the 1940s at a time when sort of the existentialist movement was taking off, although Camus always rejected that he was an existentialist, and I would say go and read your works, mate. So I think he didn't like the label so much as the underlying philosophy. And it's one of those stories that is very simplistic in a way that there's a lot more under the surface than there appears to be. So the story from the book, and I believe it's a relatively faithful adaptation, is that Meursault he's sort of drifting through life. He gets into a casual relationship with a woman, and he has a difficult relationship with his neighbour and ends up doing a favour for him that ends up with a brutal crime that he ends up getting arrested for, and he goes on trial. So there's not a huge amount to this story, and I believe that this adaptation does take a few creative licenses, I guess, to flesh it out to a almost 2-hour runtime. We get a few flashback sequences, I'm led to believe.
There's not much in the way of flashbacks. There's a very jarring dream sequence. But I think unlike unlike the other Francois Ozon films that I've seen, he's never stood out as a visual guy. He seems more interested in telling character stories through a more basic lens and then having certain moments that kind of stick with you. Whereas this is very much a gorgeous film. It is black and white. There are some really striking images, and the photography is so beautiful that you don't mind that there's long stretches of no dialogue. I think Train Dreams could do with whoever made Train Dreams could do with watching this and be like, you don't have to have the main character or someone reading the book to you while you see these beautiful visuals. Let the visuals speak for themselves. And Francois Ozon has a confidence to let Benjamin Boisson do his thing in these beautiful settings, and through the specific character interactions, people are saying things at Meursault, and he's just kind of living life by moment. So he's just kind of visually processing everything that someone's saying as if he's never thought about them before, and then makes odd decisions and then doesn't know why he does them. So I think the film has a lot of confidence in letting the visuals and the performances carry the film, which I think is quite brave for Ozon. And it all builds thematically, like where the film ends up going. There does start to be some narration creep in towards the end, probably mostly by necessity to tie everything together. But the way things are tied together and the way things build, it is very satisfying by the end. And you have a really strong glimpse into where his head's at by the end of the film that would probably make the film very rewatchable.
So it sounds like this is a very adept adaptation of the language of Camus into the language of cinema. So yeah. I imagine if you're a fan of the book, such as I, you will really appreciate this as a piece of cinematic, quote-unquote, art. I
think so, yeah. As a piece of European cinema, really strong performance, really strong. But it's just like a classic European drama. It's really good.
Well, there we go then. That is The Stranger. It's a Certificate 15, and I'm going to be watching it at the Picture House as soon as possible. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to watch it yesterday because I went to see the film that we'll be discussing next, which is someone who has a much more pleasant time in the Mediterranean, as we bring you the trailer for You, Me and Tuscany.
So let me get this straight. You meet some random rich white boy. He's Italian.
Salute. I'm Matteo.
And you think that that's a sign to fly to Italy tonight?
He told me about his big old villa just sitting there.
Empty.
Don't come calling me from no Tuscan jail.
Ciao.
First time to Tuscany?
My first time pretty much anywhere. Hello?
Who leaves an engagement ring in a junk drawer?
What are you doing here?
This is all a really big misunderstanding.
She's marrying Matteo.
Yes! What do?
You can pretend to be his fiancé, or you go to prison. Either way, it's very romantic.
That was You, Me and Tuscany, which stars Halle Bailey as Anna, a young cook who takes an impulsive holiday to Italy and decides to squat in a stranger's villa. When the homeowner's mother finds her in the house, she convinces her that she is in fact engaged to be married to her son. But that small lie becomes a big problem when Anna develops a growing attraction to her supposed fiancé's handsome cousin, played by Regé-Jean Page. Matthew, I would ask, is this more Roman Holiday or Hallmark Special? But I fear that would be a leading question. So I'll instead point you to the film's tagline, which is, "She came for the pasta and got lost in the sauce." So
well, she didn't even come for the pasta.
Well, there we go. But but food does play an important part of this film.
No,
so
you're right.
Let me ask you, a penne for your thoughts?
Oh, God. I mean, it's bad, but I don't know whether I'm missing the point. But I think she's probably the worst protagonist I've ever seen in a film, in terms of she's so absolutely hopeless at everything she tries to do. Sort of, we open on her getting fired from a house sitting gig because she's been trying on all of her clients' clothes and just strutting around in them, going out and about town. And then she decides that rather than try and get her life together, she's going to take an impulsive trip to Tuscany in the middle of festival week that has nowhere to stay. So just decides to just sneak into the house of a guy she randomly met in a hotel. And so, yeah, nothing that she does at any point really makes any sense. She somehow gets adopted by this family who assume that she's the fiancée of a son they've not spoken to in over a year, and seemingly still have no way of contacting, because then they would instantly see through this ridiculous lie. But the people I was in the screening with were laughing at the right moments. There are a couple of running gags that kind of work. Like there's a moment in the trailer where Regé-Jean Page has got his top off and they're making out in the grape fields, and we sort of see that there's a tour guide taking a load of tourists around, and they say, "Oh, I'll have some of what she's having," or some line.
That line is directed by Cat Poirot, the film's director.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that was the only moment in the film that I laughed at.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I laughed slightly more than that, but I don't know whether I was laughing at it or with it, or whether that even matters. I say I didn't hate the experience of watching it, but as a film, you can't apply any sort of logic to what any character is doing. You just kind of have to take it all as it goes. I do feel sorry for Regé-Jean Page that he's been reduced to this, because he quit Bridgerton famously to avoid being typecast in these kind of rom-com roles, and now is back doing this, whereas Jonathan Bailey, who stayed in Bridgerton, he gets to do Wicked and Jurassic Park.
Yeah, I mean, I was utterly perplexed the entire time I was watching this film. There was, while I was watching it, I was recalling there's a theme online of Americans who talk about being Italian, which means, and by that, they're like their great-grandmother lived in Italy and they've never been to the country and they know nothing about it.
It's an important part of their heritage.
Yeah, but they claim Italianness and they believe that they're as Italian as anyone else. And I thought about that because this feels like if someone like that if you'd ask them what Italy is like, they'd say, oh, it's just like America, except from there are grape fields and people
permanently sunset.
Yeah, and they're just walking down the street and picking up tomatoes and eating them. This film should have been a comedy of culture class. It should be an American who kind of likes, has this romantic idea of Italy and then goes to Italy and sees what it's really like. But unfortunately, Italy is just like a Hollywood backlot.
A very hallmark in that sense.
And, I don't know whether this was this was filmed in Tuscany. There are moments where it felt obviously green screened, like moments when they're in a vineyard. But then some of the sets...
It felt like it probably was filmed in potentially Tuscany, but I got a sense of the setting at least being somewhat authentic, even if the behaviour of all the people in that setting didn't necessarily ring true. I was thinking a bit of parallels with the drama because, obviously it's a rom-com, so when the deceit is revealed, all is forgiven in about 2 minutes. But I was just thinking, why would you entertain this person in your life for any more time after you find out they've basically been living this insane lie for the past 5 days?
I found it so hard to sympathise with Halle Bailey as a lead character.
She was so gormless the whole way through.
Because and I've got a lot of criticism on the show for my love of the romantic comedy, and I would point to a film like this and say there's actually a real art to telling the story well. And I went and I looked at the creative forces behind this film when I got home. It's written by Ryan Engel, who wrote mostly Liam Neeson's of mid-career action thrillers, like Non-Stop. And
I like Non-Stop.
Yeah, and he also did Beast and one of those other creature features. And it feels almost insulting that he's gone, oh yeah, I'm sure I can knock up a romantic comedy. He wrote this one with his partner, so...
Well, but I should stress that the women I was in the screening with, and it was entirely women, they were laughing. They seemed to be enjoying it. I mean, and I laughed as well at points.
But I don't think our negative reception to this film is because we're blokes and we don't get it. I love a good romantic comedy, as long-time listeners of the show will know. It's just that you have the woman at the centre of these films has to be charming and likeable, and you have
not completely useless.
You have to feel sorry for them because of the trap they've got themselves in. And it was such an avoidable issue for Halle Bailey. The circumstances that involves her deception is so utterly unbelievable to begin with. And then there's a very clear way that she can get out of it, and she chooses not to. And I think that's quite important, because you lose any sense of sympathy. And when you see the rest of the family members who are so excited that their son's going to get married, I couldn't enjoy any part of it, because I just thought, you are awful, Halle Bailey, a character, for what you were doing to this family.
Did you at least enjoy when the patriarch of the family sees her take a steak off in the saucepan, and then suddenly from that can see that she's a world-class chef?
Oh yeah. The food is very fetishistic throughout this film. Like, people's understanding of what makes great cooking, because Halle Bailey, there's this narrative arc of her having to drop out of culinary school.
We never see her actually do any cooking.
We see her chop one tomato. And she's using the wrong knife, and I was wondering, when they got the footage of that, maybe they'd bring a stunt double in, someone who clearly, may have been to one culinary school class. There's a lot of people eating sandwiches.
They love sandwiches in Tuscany.
There's the meet cute with Roger Jean Page involves a sandwich.
Involves two sandwiches.
Yeah, the Uber driver's eating a sandwich. If this was your first understanding of what Italian culture was, you think everyone was eating sandwiches. Unfortunately, we've got to move on. Neither of us recommended You, Me and Tuscany at all. I will say, though, it is nice to see a romantic comedy on the big screens. You won't be able to watch it on your Tagliatelle. That is You, Me and Tuscany, a certificate 12A, and it is showing at the Everyman and the Light. And our travels take us even further afield now as we enter the home stretch of today's show with, and I can't believe this is happening, Saipan.
Where is it you're going again?
Saipan.
Saipan.
This is Saipan,
where Irish preparations for the World Cup are in full swing.
We're sending them to the place that launched the nuclear bomb.
That's ominous.
Maybe it'll bring you all closer together.
The work starts now, yeah?
How are you going to manage Roy Keane?
I'm a winner, just like Roy.
Here's Roy Keane.
So, Saipan is set amid Ireland's preparation for the 2002 World Cup, with team captain Roy Keane, played by Ian Hardwick, coming to blows with manager Mick McCarthy, played by Steve Coogan. But will it be Keane's infamous temper or McCarthy's inability to galvanise the team that affects the nation's chances in the upcoming tournament? Or, Matt, I dare say, a little bit of both.
Yeah, I guess so. I was very excited for this because it's such a strange film to exist. Like, why would you make a film 24 years later about a falling out in the preparation for the World Cup of a not very good football team? But, here it is, and it's got Steve Coogan in. But I felt like Stephen Coogan in particular was quite miscast for the role. He sort of plays Mick McCarthy as an Irish Alan Partridge and kind of makes him out to be a bumbling buffoon in a way that I think is probably quite unfair, not knowing much about Mick McCarthy in real life, but I assume he's a fairly competent manager, having done the job for many years. Ina Hardwick, I think, is fair, a bit more convincing, but sort of just plays Roy Keane as a thoroughly unlikable person with absolutely no ability to manage conflict at all, other than just by getting extremely angry. But I think that the central problem is we never get to see the rise of their relationship. They seem to dislike each other at the start of the film and then still dislike each other at the end, and it all comes to a head in a big kind of public team meeting where they're both shouting at each other about things that we as the viewer haven't seen and don't know anything about. So I think it feels like it's asking you to have a really strong knowledge of the context and build-up of this argument in a way that I just don't think is fair for an incident that happened 24 years ago. So, yeah, a real oddity and one that I think just didn't quite work for me.
Yeah, I'm similar to you. My excitement for this film was more like the curiosity about how they make a film out of... I remember this being a news story. I'm sure you do as well, Matt.
Yeah, that 2002 World Cup, we got to watch it during lessons at school. It was amazing.
Yeah, and it was a big moment in football at the time. But when I heard about 2 years ago is when I heard about the film, and I was like, goodness me, how are they going to make 90 minutes out of this? And Lorcan, you're not a football person, so I'm wondering whether this film worked for you at all as a drama set amid football without any of the baggage of knowing this story in advance.
Yes, great question. I think there's something mad, like half the population of the world supports a football team, but whenever you Google like football movies, it's like The Damned United, and then you get the Bend It Like Beckham and Shaolin Soccer. So it's like, for this multi-billion-dollar industry, there's really not a lot of representation in film for whatever reason. So I was curious, and because I haven't had the exposure in real life and I haven't had that exposure to football through film, I was like, go for it. I want to see what all the fuss is about. And in the film, from my perspective, not knowing a lot of the history of the characters, whatever, the way the film presents the story is a hotel booking was mismanaged and a guy didn't play a football game. It's just like, sorry,
it's a storm in a teacup.
Is that it? Like, surely there's better stories. Like, this is one of the 5 football films that exist, and this is what they put the money towards.
But I think that's part of the absurdity of this. Like, they sort of frame the story around both Irish national identity and how men deal with crises. The fact that this escalated so rapidly over something so small, I think is what they're going for.
But I mean, the whole idea of crisis of national identity is a very feathered touch in terms of the themes of the film. Mick McCarthy, like, I know who Mick McCarthy is because I grew up in Ireland, but I don't know really much about his football history. And like Matt says, the film expects you to know quite a bit of football history. Steve Coogan, the character's written very flatly. He's basically written like a moron. And then you cast Steve Coogan, who is famous for playing quirky characters and doing funny accents. And you've got him playing a quirky character and doing a funny accent. I really liked his relationship with his wife, played by Alice Lowe. That was really cute, but it's got nothing to do with the film. I really like the relationship between Ian Hardwick playing Roy Keane and the woman playing his wife, Harriet Keynes. They had a really cute relationship. No point to that. You can cut that out and you don't lose anything. So you have the relationship between Roy Keane and Mick McCarthy. Ian Hardwick does a really good job. He does carry the film. He's got a good presence. He knows what to do and when. He's playing against Steve Coogan.
They're in different films.
He's playing an idiot, and you're supposed to start off the film kind of liking Roy Keane, but then by the end of the film, you're supposed to like Mick more, but you don't because he's an idiot. And so it's just, as someone viewing this outside, I was just like, this is all around bizarre. I don't know what to feel and when, and I don't have the history to know what's really going on.
Kind of just dislike both of them by the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's particularly interesting is when Steve Coogan was brought on board, he demanded a rewrite because he thought the original script was too harsh on Mick McCarthy. And I would love to know what that version of the film looked like. Because, I agree. It felt like he was I was confused about who we were supposed to be rooting for here. I was particularly confused that it felt like they'd taken the least interesting part of this story. Like, for me, the bit after the Saipan incident is where the story surely it gets really, like, your team captain has left. You've got to still play in a World Cup.
And they actually did pretty well.
Yeah, and as they remind us at the end of the film, Ireland did really well at that tournament. They got a draw at Germany and they got knocked out on penalties by Spain. It's one of the best World Cup
they didn't lose in regulation time in the whole tournament.
And I would love to see a version of the film in which it's everyone else who has to pick up and
deal with these drama queens.
And deal with these drama queens. And curiously, like the film sort of presents the Irish team as a bunch of amateurs and Roy Keane, which just patently isn't true based on on-field issues. And you could also, players like Robbie Keane, Steve Finnan, both very accomplished footballers in their own rights. So I think there's a curiosity here that I would recommend people go and see it because it's interesting. But I don't
interesting that it exists.
It's interesting that it exists more so than it is an interesting film. That is Saipan, a certificate 15 for very strong language, and that's mostly from the two leads, and it is showing on Amazon Prime. And we have time for one more film today as we head over to Netflix for the survival thriller Thrash.
Yeah, that's coming in fast. Must be a big one.
The National Hurricane Center has issued hurricane surge warnings for this area.
Mom!
Just breathe.
They're saying it could be a Category 5.
That's what they always say, and then everything turns out to be fine.
Jesus Christ.
Thrash depicts the catastrophic hurricane that hits a coastal town and an onslaught of sharks roaming the flooded streets, with a cast that includes Phoebe Dynevor, second Bridgerton alumni of today's show, and one-time Oscar nominee Djimon Hounsou. The town braves the torrential rain, debris and darkness as they attempt to survive the deadly predators and make it through the storm. Lorcan, is this silly and fun or just silly?
Yeah, it's just silly. So I saw in the opening credits as produced by Adam McKay of Anchorman and Don't Look Now and Vice and all these political comedies. And I was like, oh, this is weird. Why would he produce a stupid shark movie? And it tries to tie in like climate change with a really, 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 really dumb, bad shark movie. And it's like, if there's any way to get people not interested in climate change, surely this is one of the key ways. It's a complete, I would say, in my humble opinion, rip-off of Crawl, Alexandra Aja's film where there's a flood and a woman has to escape her own house, which is slowly being flooded, and a crocodile or alligator is in there. Except it takes place across this whole town, and they don't have the budget for it. It's ridiculous. I hated all the characters. They're all obnoxious and dumb, and it really punches down at everyday folk. A complete waste of time.
Well, there we go. What a way to end today's show. That's Thrash, and it is showing on Netflix. And that's all we have time for today. Please join us again 2 weeks from now on Saturday the 25th of April, where we may be discussing Lee Cronin's The Mummy. Elsewhere, Brian Cox makes his directorial debut in Glenrothen, and Antoine Fuqua brings us the King of Pop in Michael. Until then, it's goodbye from me and from our reviewers.
Goodbye.
Bye.